For centuries, we've treated beauty like a math problem. The assumption was that aesthetic perfection is an objective law, a code built on symmetry, proportion, and a specific mathematical formula. You can see that code carved into the marble of ancient Greek and Roman statues. It was the standard for the ideal human form, and it dictated Western art for generations. But if beauty is a strict mathematical law, why do we constantly fall in love with things that break those rules? In 1917, Marcel Duchamp took a porcelain urinal, signed a fake name, and called it art. It was a complete rejection of classical proportion. Soon after, avant-garde movements pushed aesthetics entirely out of the traditional and into the bizarre. They obscured the human form behind chainmail and industrial materials, completely upending what audiences expected. With the old mathematical laws dismantled, we're left with a question. If beauty is no longer a fixed formula, how does it actually function within us? Western art originally set out to perfectly imitate reality. But once artists mastered perspective and realism, they needed a new frontier. Movements like Romanticism and Impressionism stopped trying to capture exactly how the world looked and started trying to capture how it felt. The goal shifted to psychology, raw emotion, and the overwhelming awe of the sublime. Later, conceptual art took this even further. The physical appearance of an object started to matter less than the idea or the set of instructions behind it. The timeline of art history demonstrates a clear evolution. Beauty stopped being a strict visual property and became a highly complex intellectual and emotional experience. Yet, defining beauty purely by what we see, even abstractly, is a historically Western trap. Look at the Malay concept of keindahan. In this tradition, beauty is completely intertwined with moral propriety and courtesy. A beautiful object or performance cannot be separated from the ethical harmony it creates. Similarly, in specific African aesthetic frameworks, beauty is highly functional. It's a relational trait tied to communal harmony and social standards, rather than an isolated object meant to give someone visual pleasure. And the Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi finds beauty precisely in what the classical mathematicians rejected: impermanence, transience, and the imperfect. Across these cultures, beauty acts as a functional, ethical, and social system, a living standard of behavior rather than a static object on a pedestal. To find a single mechanism that unites a symmetrical statue, an abstract concept, and a moral act, we have to look past the objects themselves and into the brain. Neuroimaging reveals that judging a painting or listening to music utilizes a shared valuation circuit. The medial orbital frontal cortex consistently activates when experiencing beauty. This connects to processing fluency. When a stimulus is easy to process, our brains reward us with pleasure. But truly intense aesthetic experiences also activate the default mode network, a brain network tied to memory and internally oriented cognition. This triggers deep inward reflection and self-relevance, moving past surface-level pleasure. Beauty functions as a biological reward loop, a system triggered by a massive diversity of cultural, intellectual, and visual inputs. And today, the modern digital landscape of social media platforms has completely weaponized that exact biological loop in our brains. This chart illustrates the mere exposure effect, plotting exposure against aesthetic preference. Repeated exposure automatically increases your positive attitude. Algorithms exploit this by flooding feeds with mathematically optimized aesthetics, artificially spiking processing fluency to feed our brains the easiest stimuli to digest. As a result, this ecosystem actively pulls us away from the diverse, ethical, and conceptual definitions of beauty we've built over centuries. It replaces them with a highly homogenized, platform-engineered standard. Beauty lives in the system connecting the object to the observer. But as synthetic media scales, we have to constantly ask ourselves, what invisible algorithms are currently training our sense of taste?